Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Dawes County Board of Commissioners Work Session. Agenda today is Thursday, June 20th, 2019. We do appreciate your attendance. First up, we'll begin with unfinished business. Presentation of RFP 33819 Veterans Memorial Park Pavilion Playground and Multi-Purpose Field. Our SPLOST Administrator, Public Works Director, David McKee. David.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you again to come before you and talk about this project. We reiterate, we heard 2 weeks ago, briefly, this was on the agenda, and we did receive some bids, and I'll go through all that in just a second. And there was some value engineering that we had to do, that staff had to do internally. I want to remind you that this is the chicken before the egg for the senior center. So all this work has to be done, and I have a site plan in here that's overlaid that staff has put over the top of aerial photograph that will help tie all this together and really why we have to do this. And I'll attempt to explain the best of my ability what we've done to value this project down, and we'll go from there. A little background and overview. SPLOST 6 funds allocated for park use. I think we've heard that time and time again. And the majority of this project that we're talking about today will be funded with SPLOST 6 funds. We set aside and allocated roughly $800,000 for renovations for recreation facilities in the budget process at the beginning of this year. That number was grabbed straight out of the air. There's no we had nothing really tied to that. And then what I'll also say is that we have seen, as a matter of the economy, that the cost to do these services is forever skyrocketing. And a lot of folks are only holding the cost for 30 days. So that's one of the challenges that we saw with getting this number back. So Veterans Memorial Park, and the word unused, the term is unused here. I think it's underused. Field 3 that's there now is underused. It's a large baseball field. The elevation is significantly above the finished floor elevation of the existing senior center. So the thought process was lower the elevation of the Field 3, use that dirt to fill in the hole where the senior center is going to be, the new senior center is going to be, create a multi-use field which will serve much more purpose to the recreation department than a baseball field. It could be used during football, soccer, if you will, anything, just a large multi-use field. There's also a pavilion there, and I think for many of you who've been on the board long enough, you've heard time and time again the pavilion needs renovation, it needs to be replaced. So this project will replace that pavilion with a new state-of-the-art, I say state-of-the-art, just a timber frame, open timber frame pavilion, much like the large pavilion at Rock Creek Park now. And then also the playground, it ties in the walk and trail, and I'll show you a little bit of that on the site plan here in just a minute. We did our typical procurement process, just like we do with all of our bids of this nature. We did receive 5 bids. A little bit about the scope and what was included in that. Went through most of that just a second ago, and it's essentially a turnkey job. We bid this out as a turnkey job. All the paving, grading, seeding, sod, everything was made part of that. Asphalt, parking lot striping, bumpers, curb, anything. We'll be given this job from the contractor. I'm going to take just a minute on this slide here. What you're looking at is an aerial photograph of Veterans Memorial Park. In the bottom of the screen, the bottom of that there to the south side of that picture, you can see the existing senior center building. All the colors that you see come straight from the site plan that was put together by the engineers and architects that we're talking about tonight. The large block just to the, I guess, let's say 7:30 or about 10 o'clock if you move up and to the left is the footprint of the new senior center building. And then you can see the parking lot moving all around to the north, and then that block there just to the north of the parking lot is the new pavilion. and then the playground would be just beyond that. If you're familiar enough with Veterans Park, there's also a road that goes back to those other parks. All of this occurs before you get to that road. So all that dirt, and then to the right, if you cross over Recreation Way, we've shown a multi-use field there. What that is essentially a regulation size football field. What you can also see as part of this is you get a lot more area than just that, a regulation size football field. Positive drainage, of course. The light blue, seafoam blue area would be the stormwater retention pond. I'm going to come back to this in just a second, highlight some of the areas that were of concern to us. But as the original bid was bid out, there's an existing maintenance building, and if you look at this picture, it's just to the left, a little rectangular silver block there. That's the existing maintenance building. The original plan for this was we need to save that building. And I'll explain just a second why I'm addressing that building. So here's the original bids we received. And the intent here is not so you can see every one of these, but this is the 5 bids that we received. They range in cost from $2,345,000 to $3,400,000. So they range. There's a wide range in cost there. So as such, you can see what when we saw this number, we did just like anybody else would. That's not going to work. What can we do to bring this into a little more reality? So we reduced the scope and really started digging into it and asked some tough questions. What is an absolute must? What do we have to have, and what can we get away with? What can we value out of the project? I'm going to go back just a second. Actually, let's talk about a couple things here. So vertical earth was the low bid. I'll go back to this slide. Vertical earth was the low bid on the left hand, the first column here, third column over there in red. Vertical earth was the low bid on most all of the bid pricing. As part of this project, there was a huge wall. Again, if you're familiar with it, it slopes downhill away from there. We're trying to save that building and not have to grade over the property line and try to get easements and everything from the adjacent property owners. So we started out with a wall. So we sat down and said, well, let's attempt to not worry about the building, because the price of the wall came back at $582,000. So let's not, we know the building is not worth $582,000. So we took the building out. We'll relocate the building. We have plenty of room at that park that is unused that we could relocate that building for. We've got some cost estimates of about $55,000 to relocate that building, demo the building, build a new maintenance building. And understand that building is just for maintenance equipment, tools, and for the maintenance staff is what that is. So we started looking at that. Still has to be a wall, but just strictly because of the slope. But what that allowed us to do is lay the slope back quite significantly, and we go from about a 32-foot tall wall to the tallest point now is about 15 feet. So we saw significant savings to the tune of about $300,000 is what we were able to save out of that. There's some additional things that we cut out, and I'm going to go back just a second here to this thing here, this site plan. If you look, if your attention to the pavilion, which is the top portion of the box that's got the green around it, if you look to the left side of that, the original thought process was to put an amphitheater. There was really no more other than the grades allowed for it, so it would be something really neat to put in there. That ticket price is $48,000. We made the decision to value that out. We also looked at, so the new plan does not include an amphitheater. Nothing says we can't do it in the future. The land's going to be cleared. We have to fill it in anyway, but that's something that was taken out. We also looked at things like sod for the multi-use field. That was something, in our opinion, that's an absolute must. If we have a hard enough time getting grass to grow as it is, if we don't start with sod, then we'll never have grass to grow. We'll have a multi-use mud pit rather than a multi-use field. So, and then I'll also notice that there's very little or much less wall behind the new proposed senior center than there was prior to valuing this dam. So let me go back to this slide now. So where we ended up after we did all those things, there was also a discussion about the plans have a sidewalk that runs from the pavilion over to the new senior center through the middle of the parking lot. We discussed using the parking lot as for pedestrians and everything else in a park environment. We didn't like that idea, safety and everything else, so we put that back in. That was a roughly $5,600 add back into the project. So after we did, after multiple meetings with both the engineering staff, we contracted to give us these plans, as well as Matt and his staff and Mr. Talbert and myself. We've come to this product here, which is Vertical Earth. It's a turnkey job. It does the grading does get into the existing maintenance building, and the total cost for the project is $1,966,282.25. Okay. Now let's talk about the funding just briefly. You saw me at the beginning, said we had $800,000. So the total cost, as we just said, was $1,966,284,000. Our recommendation is that we fund this out of two different funding sources. Currently today, the Park and Rec has $715,000 of that original $800,000 left from the engineering and everything there. They also have $426,000 in impact fees. So what my recommendation is that we enter into a contract with Vertical Earth for $1,966,284.25, and then that be funded out of SPLOST 6, or funded out of impact fees, $426,000, and then the remainder be funded out of SPLOST 6. And what that will allow Matt to do and his staff, it will allow them to finish up the remainder of the SPLOST projects. There's a number of different things that will allow them to do. The maintenance building obviously being one of them, that's a must, we have to do that. There's also some LED lighting that we have turned loose in Rock Creek Park, getting all those lights LED. The flooring at Rock Creek Park. Then there's also been some discussion about turf fields and a berm. There's a flooding problem at Rock Creek Park. We have to do some quite significant work to the stream, getting some permitting from ADPD, and get that work completed before we can shift gears on the berm. So all that can be completed, and then some with the ability to utilize some of that impact fee money to offset this total cost. So our recommendation is to contract with Vertical Earth for the total amount of $1,966,284.25, and the funding source be the total impact fees that we have, which is $426,000 allocated to Park and Rec, and the remainder be paid for out of SPLOST 6.
You're not using the $715,000?
Well, that's part of the SPLOST 6 that we would be.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the overrun from the 426 would be the total of the SPLOST 6. I also want to make note there was a lot of discussion, and I really appreciate the group of county staff that worked together on this, because this was not me, it was not any one of us. There was a lot of discussion that happened, and there was some money set aside for turf, and I think it's understood that this is a benefit to the recreation system. And it's also understood that on our current collections rate for SPLOST 6, we're on a pace to collect more than $46 million, which means that when we collect over that, we can collect, because we have an IGA with the city, we can continue to collect until the end of the time frame. On the current path, we're roughly $50 million is what it is. So what our goal is also is to understand this board cannot commit, but understand that by doing this and revitalizing this park, there's also some opportunity for turf fields at the end of the SPLOST if we collect more than the $46 million. So we've been trying to think of everything and look at all options to fund everything, and unfortunately we cannot fund everything at this time. And I'll attempt to answer any questions.
Questions for David?
I guess this is just more of a zooming out process thing. So we got bids back in and we just negotiated with the lowest bid based on what we had requested. We need to go back to the other bidders and say, this is what we're trying to change. Do you want to recalculate your numbers?
That's correct.
Did you say the offers were just good for 30 days? 60.
No, it's, this bid is a 60-day, is good for 60 days. Let me also, and I didn't say this, our request, and I understand and can appreciate that we don't ever want to come into work session and then ask for approval at tonight's voting session. However, from a timing standpoint, we are requesting that we move this forward to tonight's voting session. The answer for the why is because we have to get these guys started so that we will allow our general contractor for our senior center a pad and give them time to have the building completed before our CDBG grant timing runs out, which is October of next year. So we backed into this timeline, and they need to be started quickly. And Vertical Earth understands that and understands that they have to have a building pad ready October of this year.
Other questions for David?
What's our process if we run into change orders that we have to address? Does that come back before us or is that handled administratively?
If it would come back before the board if that value goes over this amount. There's some, and Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong. The contract, for example, unsuitable soils. The contract has a square yardage cost. If they're moving that dirt from field 3 and they run into a pile of stumps, by contract, there is a cubic yard cost that is in there that they can bill as part of the contract. And obviously, just like any of our jobs, Brian Young will be on site, myself will be on site, James Tauber will be on site. It gets watched pretty heavily, and we'll watch over those.
The impact to our services that we're offering in the park system will be minimal while this is going on, and that might be a question.
We have talked about that, and Matt, you certainly chime in at any time. We've talked about that, and as part of this contract, we wrote in there that this falls right in the fall. And we know anybody that goes around there, we know football season is in the fall, and that's what that park is used for a lot, is football. So in this contract, we wrote that they have to have fencing so that Recreation Road can still be used. And if during the hours from 5 to 9, if they're working during that time, they have to have a flag man at the road where the trucks are crossing the road. So yes, we have taken that into account, and that all existing operations, with the exception of what's on Field 3, will remain.
Other questions? Don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I do want to thank you, David, and all the other staff members who so diligently have worked on this to get, not only find the money for it and through SPLOSH and impact fees, but to whittle the price down that meets the amount of money that we have, so that we're not asking for any more out of the general fund. So everyone who had a part in that, I want to say thank you for your diligence in making that come out to what it was. Anybody else got any other questions?
Just name the other people, David. Who were the other people that helped you?
Matt Payne, Brian Young, James Tauber, Melissa obviously facilitated this process. The engineers of record that were on this, Dawn had some discussions because as a follow-up to this, we've got a couple months here to sharpen our pencil on the senior center building. We're faced with a big gap there as well. So we have some very tough decisions to make on that building as well. But it's anybody that has any effect on this, or is affected on this, and I'll say so to a large point as well, the associations that use Rock Creek that may be giving up something to get something up in another park. So it's not, I don't want to take credit for it. I'm the one standing here, but I'm not going to take the credit for it.
How big a gap were we talking about with senior center? Do you
Um,
have a figure for that? I know we're not talking about that.
Yeah, I don't, so we're in the stage now where we're checking references on the different contractors. Depending on the contractor, it can be a variation of $200,000. So it's quite, I mean, it's a big gap.
Well, Tim brought his checkbook. Did you not bring your checkbook?
It's kind of on you.
Spending on that check.
I didn't bring mine. I thought you had it.
I want in trouble with that senior citizen.
Yeah, I got one question.
Go ahead.
I guess for Matt, the biggest project's gonna put off to you is the turf field,
That is correct, sir, yes.
and you're okay with that right now?
Well, I mean, yes.
Have a problem.
Yeah.
No, listen, we've talked about it, and we worked together on this, and, felt very fortunate to be a part of every negotiation. They never, they kept me involved in everything, and I'm all for doing whatever's best for the citizens of Dawson County. And this group felt like this was the best process, for sure.
And those fields are gonna be at Rock Creek, right, turf field, or both?
The turf fields would have been at Rock Creek, hoping to get those, a little bit later
But when
on.
we finish collecting, that'd be the first project up, once we collect that money in.
That is what we're hoping for.
Okay.
That'll be up to us.
It would be the board's desire, but that would be our recommendation at this point.
Thank you.
I assume, my final question is, and it's not for you.
Okay.
But as we value engineer the physical structure, that's not going to impact this overall footprint that we've allocated for the structure. I mean, it's not going to majorly change.
It does not, and because we had a $750,000 grant, we're bound to a rough footprint.
Okay.
And this rough footprint and the parking is based on the use of the facility, and there's shared parking. Obviously, the times the senior center is busy, the fields are not. So, to answer your question, no.
All right, so the request has been made to move this to the 6 o'clock voting session. Y'all good with that?
And the total amount for SPLOST 6 is $1,540,284.25, with the remainder of $426,000 usually impacted.
Thank you, David. Excellent job.
Thank you.
We'll move into new business. First up, we have presentation request to donate property located at 1168 Quail Cove Drive in Big Canoe. Owners are James W. Bryant and his wife. We had a request today to remove that from the agenda. Mr. and Ms. Bryant had something that come up that prevented them from being able to attend tonight, and they wanted to talk about that at a later date. So if that is all right with the board, we will remove that from the agenda tonight and discuss that at a later date. All right, we'll move on to presentation of request for contract assignment by Professional Probation Services, Inc., Judge Andrew Fuller, Superior Court, and Keith Ward, Professional Probation Services, Inc. Judge Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and as always, when I appear before the commission, I'd like to thank the commission and staff for all the support you provide in the court system, and we greatly appreciate it. This is a very narrow issue. Professional Probation Services is asking for an assignment of its current contract with Dawson County to provide private probation services to simply reflect a name change. As each of you probably know, originally our contract was with Northeast Georgia Probation Services. Professional Probation Services acquired that company. It was a seamless acquisition. It did not impact the service provided to Dawson County and the Dawson County court system at all. This is being done at the request of Professional Probation Services, and Keith Ward is out of town, but Thomas York is here. And Thomas, why don't you come on up if there are any questions by the commission?
He's behind you.
You are up.
Basically, judges.
If you have questions, Thomas is better equipped to answer why, if there is any questions.
Questions from the board for either one of the gentlemen?
I assume with an acquisition, we see economies of scale, so when we come back up for renegotiation of the contract, we're gonna see some cost benefits.
There can be, yes, sir. We have opened an office here in Dawsonville, so that was one change, so.
Is Is everything the same in the contract,
It is.
other than just the name?
Just the name change.
Just the name, well, that's simple enough, right? I can get that.
All
So
right.
make sure that was right.
And Mr. Chair, procedurally, if there's possible that you can be voting on this too tonight, it'd be greatly appreciated. I think the president of the Professional Probation Services wanted to conclude this by July 1st, if possible. If not, then I'm certain that it will still be acceptable if we can't do that.
That good with y'all?
It's fine with me.
Move it to 6 o'clock? All right, we'll do that.
It seems very simple.
Ms. Christie?
Wait, yeah, attorney, do you need to review anything?
She's, yeah, the council has reviewed that contract.
Okay.
That's correct. We reviewed it. There's no legal impediment. They're just looking to stand in the shoes, if I'm correct, Judge, with the former NEPS. So no problem from a legal standpoint.
All right,
Thank you.
we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have presentation special event business license application, Carol Stream Amusements, Inc., Carnival, Planning and Development Director Jameson McKinney. James.
Thank you, Chairman. It is carnival time again, right? So this carnival is set to take place between July 25th and August 4th. They're anticipating around 200 visitors per day. They're looking to open Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. and on Sunday, Saturday and Sunday, between 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. They're not charging for admission, concessions. Will be available there, and they will also be available inside the outlet mall in which this is going to, they're asking for this to take place. All signatures and other supporting documents have been signed by staff and have been agreed upon.
Questions for Jameson?
Any problems with this in the past at all?
We haven't had any code complaints that are on the record now.
And I think they've done all their safety inspections, like maybe in May or something, so.
They have, they've submitted, in fact, I believe it's Susan Gregg, she's here today if we have any questions for her. She commented today on how thorough we are in our application process.
That's probably a nice word.
Yeah.
How many years have we done this? You know?
I think this will be the second.
Or the third.
I believe this is the
The
third.
third
one?
one.
Okay. I knew it's been done a couple of times. Okay.
Yeah. But, so everything went smoothly.
I only had a couple of comments that people were unhappy shopping because of the flow of the traffic taking up so many spaces. They had trouble finding a parking space to go shopping. I did have that comment.
Other questions? Thank you,
How many
James.
parking spaces were you request? Did you request parking? Parking.
90-something,
Parking spaces.
I think it's 90-something.
Okay.
and some of the spaces, the stores were complaining about it. People were complaining.
Right, the carnival will utilize roughly 134 parking spaces of
I thought it was
3,000.
3,137
Okay.
that they have.
I would venture to say the owners of the outlet mall saw negative impact was to shut that thing down.
And that's what I was thinking.
It does bring a lot of revenue to the outlet mall.
Yeah. Just please tell me you don't want to add this to tonight's voting.
Did you not bring your night attire?
Any other questions?
Sleep.
Okay. Next up, we have presentation, special event business license application, North Georgia Premium Outlet Food Truck Event. James.
Chairman. Once again, we're talking about a special event, business license happening at the outlet mall. Or requested to happen at the outlet mall. They're looking to bring in food trucks pretty much every weekend and on special holidays through the June of next year. So we said we'd only issue a special event permit under a year long. So if they decide to keep doing this or whatever, they have to come back for another special event business license and come before the board. Basically, they're looking to take a portion of the parking lot, and according to the site plan, it looks like it's right in front of the Nike outlet on the backside. So this will just be a special event where food trucks will come in, they'll set up, they're not gonna run any cables along. Initially, they asked to see if they could put it on the sidewalks. The fire marshal, said that they couldn't do that, so now they're in the parking lot, they're not running the cables, they have their own generators. And they are looking for, if this approved, they'll move forward looking for food trucks to start coming in and serving food.
What encompasses a weekend? Are we talking about Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, or just Saturday and Sundays?
Just Saturdays and Sundays.
Saturdays and Sundays, okay. So then that won't conflict with the city's food truck night.
Tuesday or?
No, it's on Friday nights.
Oh, it is
And they
It's
have
Friday nights, and I,
once a month.
Once a month?
yeah, but I just didn't want it to conflict with that. But it's just Saturdays and Sundays. And how many will be there? Did I read 3 to 5? Is that about how many, 3 to 5, the food trucks?
Yes, ma'am.
So no Friday.
Jameson, I got one question on the, application. Proposed hours of operations is Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 9, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9, Sunday, 11 a.m. to 7, so that's,
Right, they
Is that for the outlet mall?
These are the hours for the outlet mall.
that's just down all hours?
Yes, those are the outlet mall hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I know. So they're just gonna do it Friday, Saturday,
Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday, Sunday,
Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday, Sunday, okay.
Out of curiosity from I don't know, see anybody from our tax office here, from a sales tax revenue, how does that work when a food truck comes into our space? I mean, you might not know, that was just a loose question. Are we able to collect sales tax? Are they reporting it in each county? Is that the way they do that? When they're in that county?
That's a good question.
I'll find that later. Thank you.
Vicki, would you know that answer to that question?
Should be a guess.
I think that they have to, when they report every month, they have to report in the region that they, or the county that they received it, so I think we're not getting so.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And it's gonna begin when?
They look to begin July 4th weekend, I believe, or July 4th.
Other questions? Thank you, Jameson. Next up, we have presentation of special event business license application, Papa Pat's Corn Maze. Jameson?
Chairman, it's the night of special events, correct? So, starting on September 6th, Mr. over here is looking to open up a corn maze. This is the same location as the corn maze has been for the last 17 years. They're looking to do it at the same location, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m.
No.
No, sorry, I'll read you along here. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, my apologies. It's Saturday, it's 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sunday is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Yes, sir. I'll get it right, I promise. They're located right there at the, well, everyone knows where that's located, right there on 53. Dover Hill. I'll entertain any questions at this time.
Questions for Jameson?
What's going to be the official name of the?
Papa Pat's. Papa
Okay.
Pat's. That wouldn't have anything to do with Pat Gober, would it?
No.
Not a thing, I didn't think it did, okay.
Just cause he's been there that long, you know, we thought it might get a little rainy, but
But no week, you're not gonna be open during the week?
We're only gonna
Monday through Thursday is gonna be for the church and special events to come in that's really, you know, because we watched it over the 16 years.
Okay.
Usually your weekdays, you ain't getting many people
Slow.
to it. I'm not doing a honey maze, so we ain't gonna have the traffic and the police response and all that they had to have, because we're not worried about a honey maze. We're just doing the maze for the family, to come out and enjoy the maze, hayride.
Mhm.
And we're gonna do an actual hayride. We're
gonna put you on hay bales, so if you're allergic,
No,
won't be too
No.
good.
hay bales.
Wear your mask.
Wear your mask, that's right.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Will they be serving food there?
Food will probably just be for the cold machines and packaged crackers and everything like that. I'm not looking to get somebody to come in and cook and all that right now.
And on the weekends, historically, at the one that was there, did they have off-duty officers that were doing traffic or anything like that they were paying?
Only on the nights they were doing the.
Haunted Maze that had so much traffic and problems like
But-
that.
But not during,
But
say,
not during,
November
no.
or October when there was
No.
heavy traffic.
No. I mean, if we have a problem with it, we don't have a problem getting
We can get off-duty.
off-duty
deputies.
officers. Yeah. Without having the Haunted Maze and all that traffic and all that, we're not intending that we're gonna have the problem to have a cop car out front and another one walking around and everything like that, but we're not gonna have that on Halloween or nothing like that. We'll be open for the Halloween for you to walk through the corn maze, but it ain't gonna be no Haunted Maze.
And I think that was one of the reasons that other one moved. They said they had traffic concerns and wrecks and stuff. Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Next up, we have a presentation of emergency service pay compensation proposal, emergency service director Danny Thompson. Danny.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I come before you today because we at the Emergency Services really need your help as a commission. Since I've taken over the fire department approximately a year ago, I've observed an exit of our personnel leaving for other fire departments and also the private sector. As we perform exit interviews for these individuals upon leaving, when we talk to them, a lot of them love working here in Dawson County. A lot of them want to stay here in Dawson County because a lot of them live here in Dawson. But the big sole reason for this exodus is money. It's a financial reason. We've seen a attrition rate at Dawson County Fire Department that is approximately 11%. That's 2.5 times the national average for fire departments across the country. The staff and I have worked tirelessly to build a sound organization, to increase the morale of this organization, to ensure our citizens daily are taken care of. These great men and women that are sitting back here tonight, they love this county, and they love its residents. They're willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice for that. So with all that said, we are still losing employees every day to Forsyth, Cherokee, Hall, the North Fulton cities, Northeast Georgia Medical Center. And it's a struggle for us. I have put forth to you all, submitted a letter to Mr. Headley because I wanted to get this to you guys before this became an emergency situation, before the emergency was in your hands at that point. We have, like I said, we've done so much in the year that I've been here, and I'm proud of each and every one of these men and women back here, but I need your help. Bottom line is I need you to stand up and do the thing for these men and women. I'll say this. We talk about sometimes employees being our biggest assets. It's time. Are they truly your biggest assets? Many of your employees that sit back here are county residents. Don't turn your back on them. Because tonight, if you need them, they're going to be there for you. No matter what decision you make. I'll close with this. I'm troubled, as you can tell. I've presented many times to this board. But I'm tired of looking at these men and women knowing they're living down paycheck to paycheck. It's sad. It's got to stop. It starts with you guys. I need you. I need your help. I'll be willing to answer any questions. I can provide you with numerous stats and data. I have a comparison I'll pass around because I know want you to be able to see what's going on around you. Right now, there are 11 fire departments within 30 miles of this county that are paying between $10,000 and $16,000 more. 10 and 16. The option I put before you guys, I'm asking for $3,800 for a paramedic and $34,000 for a firefighter EMT. I'll take any questions.
On these three options, which do you think would work the best?
Option A is my preferred. I've worked with 50, I've worked with Human Resources. Human Resources can tell you, we've had full-time job postings for over a year. During that time, I think we've received 28 applicants. And most of those applicants don't qualify, don't meet the minimum qualifications. They're either non-certified firefighters, they're either not certified EMTs and paramedics. So it's been a challenge. During that time frame, we've hired 3 full-time paramedics in 1 year, and we've lowered the standards of our hiring to try to reduce our overtime, because I will tell you, at the current rate, if we don't make changes in staffing, we're going to run out of overtime money. We will run out by October. So like I said, we'll have money left over in the regular salaries because we're carrying 8 to 11 vacancies in full-time staffing. And we haven't even began the budget process and to meet the needs of our growing county. The infrastructure is growing for every department head here. And so, but with that, like I said, we really got to have some help. And I need you.
I would say this, coming from that field, I've stood where he stands. I understand the plight that you have. And I will say, as a comment, as a citizen, and as well as a commission chairman, it is obviously our obligation here as a board to make sure that the safety of our citizens is taken care of. And this is a department that's responsible for part of that, obviously. And he has currently, it looks like, 11 full-time openings for firefighter paramedic, if I'm reading this correctly. How many openings do you currently have now for firefighter EMT?
I just have one safer position.
Okay.
He left about 2 weeks ago to go to Hall County.
But I can tell you, having run this department, that 11 vacancies is a crisis today. It is not in a situation where you're going to be in a crisis before too long, because you're talking about, what, 15, 16, 17 people on the shift.
14 a day.
14 a day, and so you have 11 vacancies. So that's a crisis today. That's not a crisis that's going to be tomorrow. That's a crisis today. And if he's able to garner enough part-time people or full-time people to keep filling those shifts, he's doing an admirable job as the leader of this organization, because I can tell you how difficult that is to try to get people to continue every day, because they have families and they have other things that they want to do other than work every single day, because they already work a 24-hour shift. They'd like to get off and maybe rest or do some things like that right there, but I can understand what he's saying about the men and women of this department, because they are dedicated. They will work, they will come in, they'll help you out, and whatever they have to do to keep it going. Now, he didn't mention, and I don't know how many times he's had to do this, but I will tell you that in the past, that when I was in charge of this department, that there were many days in order to maintain some type of commonality and to protect the largest majority of this county, we were moving people constantly. We would close this truck down, move that person to this truck. That's not the way we're supposed to operate. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And I take great, it bothers me as it bothers him that we have lowered a standard to try to get more people. That's not the way we're supposed to operate. I mean, and I don't blame him for that. He's trying. He's trying to get people in positions. But when you lower a standard where you're trying to get someone and run them through the system, you're not helping the system, you're hurting the system. We've got to have qualified men and women day one. We don't need qualified men and women that takes us 8, 9, 10 months to put together, or 18 months in the paramedic case. We need people that can do the job today, that are able and willing to do the job today. And I think everybody sitting out there that's a citizen expects that to happen. I think they expect that to happen. They expect when they call for a fire truck or they call for an ambulance, they expect one to come. Now, we've got some great partners around us that help us and have always helped us and will always help us. Counties around us have stepped up. We help them, they help us. But it can't be a situation where we need to continuously call those people for help, because that's going to come out in a long time where it becomes very, very difficult. Riding around this county, I see a lot of times where Forsyth County Med units here helping us because we don't have the manpower. We have to have this manpower. We got to figure out. I don't know exactly what the fix for it is, but if he wants to recommend option A and he thinks that's the best fix, then I think we should listen to that. He can put a dollar amount to that, I'm sure, with Vicky's help, and already has, and knows what that is. But
Well, so what is it?
what is that dollar amount?
So Miss Vicki and I have worked together on it, but to include the fringe and everything, puts it at, increasing my budget to about 258?
57.
57.
57.
57? How many men and women do you have right now? That
I haven't received the most current position control. We are down right now, currently 8 positions as we speak. And I know, because we've developed such a good relationship with the men and women. I've had some of my guys come to me and say, Chief, look, I'm just going to be honest with you, I love working for you. You bring a level of enthusiasm to this job, and you've made it fun again. But I can go to Hall County, I'm putting in. I know that I've got 2 that have put in for Hall, and I've got 2 that have put in for Site. And we're standing to lose in the next 30, 45 days, 4 more. So, I think some things to consider is when we lose these men and women who we have a vested interest in, it takes $5,000 to outfit a new hire. When I hire a new employee for gear and uniforms before they ever start a single day on that job, I got $5,000 invested in them. We have $5,000 invested in them.
Because they're not the
Our
same
citizens.
size, height, weight.
And that's right.
Yes.
And, we've had to stop. I've worked with Erica and Christy, and the ladies are phenomenal, but I had to send Erica an email 2 months ago. I said, quit advertising for part-time positions. I said, because I can't hire them. And the reason why I can't hire them is because it takes 2 part-timers to fill a full-time position. But that's $10,000. And when the Affordable Care Act went through in 2015, we've never really changed how we've done business over there on the part-time aspect of it. And so we carry some part-time vacancies because we don't have money to outfit them with the appropriate gear and to get them to work. And so, like I said, it's a struggle daily, and that struggle, I can't think enough to each and every one of my staff, because my battalion chiefs will ride med units. My command staff will fill in on med units, on battalion vehicle, and do whatever we have to do to make this work. And we will continue to. We will continue to the bitter end to make this thing work and to provide for our citizens the safety that they deserve.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
I think what's happened in the past too, it's not only Dawson County, probably around the country, but everybody figures on a yearly salary. They say, well, we're gonna pay a firefighter, for example, $36,000 a year, whatever. And then you compare it to $36,000 with a 40-hour work employee, they're making $17 an hour, and the firefighter's making $12 an hour. The deputy's making $15 to $16 an hour. So it's, when you can't figure it on salary. You gotta figure it on hourly work, because a firefighter works $28.80, is that right, Chief? Plus overtime. And if you figured on 36,000, they're making $12 and something an hour.
They're gonna work basically about 700 and something hours more a
Than a
year
40-hour work
than a
week.
40-hour employee does. And the way we're currently doing something, and the way it was programmed to us, was that we take that lump sum, which is matched up with everybody else's lump sum, and divide it by that 2,700 hours. So yeah, I mean, they may be in a pay grade 17, but when you look at it, and you look at their actually hourly rate, they're a pay grade 9. And so there is the discrepancy, and we'll talk in a few minutes about a salary study, but there's got to be better parameters set forth going forward in salary studies that make an hour's worth of work worth whatever that hour's worth of work is, based on that particular position. And so I think we have to look at that. Go back to, like I said, this is not new. This is not something other that just came up. We've had issues for years in public safety. We continue to have issues in public safety. We have issues in the sheriff's office. Now, I'm going to include David McKee's group. They're in public safety. You look at it on a national level, public safety includes public works. David has the same issue. People coming and going. So we're going to have to look at not only his department, we're going to have to look at these other departments so that we can maintain a workforce. When you're constantly retraining, constantly recruiting, you're spending a whole lot of money, people, I can tell you. 'Cause every day that he has to have somebody else ride with somebody new, you're getting 2 people getting paid for hopefully 1.5 persons worth of work. So that's basically all you're getting, if that. Because they're learning. They have to learn the job. They may have the certification, but they have to learn the job. But it is totally unacceptable for us as a county to have to lower the standard on the type of people that we're going to hire to work and protect the lives of the people that live in this county or visit this county. I don't care whether you live here or not. If you live here, you drive through here, we have a responsibility to protect you when you're on this property in this side in Dawson County. When you're in that 211 square mile area, we have a responsibility to take care of you. We have even a greater responsibility to those who live here every day, because they expect it. And so, I can understand his emotion, because I've lived that same emotion. I've worked day after day after day, night after night after night, to make sure there was somebody to cover. And these men and women back here will do the same thing. They are dedicated. They're dedicated to the cause. They're dedicated to what they do. Because I'm going to tell you, you don't get into public safety to make money. Not a lot of money. You just want to live. You just want to be able to get, have a home and have some, minor stuff. You're never going to be wealthy if you work in public safety. You can forget that. That's not a job that's going to make you wealthy. But, it's our obligation to make sure that we have the people to do the job. And so we have to be competitive. We have to be competitive. We can't expect to keep people at a non-competitive wage. And I'll give you this, and I could go on about this for a very long time, but I'll stop. Cherokee County is going to do a 23% pay increase over the next 2 years. Now, that's not something we can do, I understand that. But they're doing that county-wide, 12%, I think it was this year, 11% next year. Gilmer County is now paying a paramedic firefighter $16 an hour as a starting wage. We're at $14 an hour. There is no one in this room that can tell me that we don't have a stronger ability to pay our people than Gilmer County does. There's no one in here that can tell me that. So it's important. This is a very important thing. He didn't call it a crisis. I will. It's a crisis now. It's not a crisis that's fixing to come up. It's a crisis now. Other questions?
Losing to the private sector or public? Are they going to another county government, or are they
Yes.
going,
No, so all of the above.
but, you know,
One
I
of the
mean, it's
biggest
so hard for
competitors,
us.
one of the biggest competitors we're losing to is Northeast Georgia Medical Center. Their starting pay for a paramedic is $24.50. And anytime after 7 o'clock at night, they get another $2.50 per shift.
Time and a half or
And
shift.
anything over 40 hours, they get time and a half for. You know, when we looked at everybody that touches Dawson County, every department except one pays more than $2 an hour. And like I said, what I've got before you is really, this is an attempt to retain our people that we have, because they are our investment. And hopefully, once the salary study, when Ms. Green comes up and presents it to you all, and that study's completed, I'm 100% confident there'll be more at the end of it. But, you know, right now, I wanted to get it before you to let you know that your public safety needs you in a bad way.
What's Forsyth doing? Aren't they doing they're doing away with rookie schools? They're recruiting.
Forsyth County is going to a 5-day lateral program. So they bring an employee in, they have them for 1 week, and they push them out to the field. And again, Forsyth is roughly 12% more than us on starting wages for both firefighter EMT and that of a medic. Our current firefighter EMT hourly rate is $12.83. I joined a biscuit this morning, saw Mr. Chairman there, and saw that Bojangles was advertising for $13 an hour.
Forsyth gives, excuse me, Chief, but I called over there too. They give a bonus coming in, match, what was it, 12% or 12.5% of your retirement, plus give you credit for years of service. So you could leave another department, go in, just like you've been there the whole time. If you had 5 years here, you'd have 5 years there. Is that right?
Correct. In Cherokee,
Cherokee was
a firefighter paramedic will be roughly making about $52,000 a year.
Other questions?
Just like to make a comment, Billy, I appreciated you calling out the road department, because the low salaries they make, and you take it $10 an hour, 12, what is your salary?
$12.95.
$12.95, and I think about them working in the snow and ice and in the heat, and how dangerous it is. And then, of course, there's the sheriff. He's always needing people, and with the growth we're having, I'm just concerned with all of these comments. And but the only thing that I'm troubled by this is we're singling out one group, and I get it, your group. And I appreciate you coming forward and requesting, that I just would like for somehow if we could take a look at this quickly and look at all departments. And this is kind of, I guess, leading into the next one, the salary study. And it just seems like it would keep morale better for these others, because I've already had another department person tell me, I saw on the agenda of what you're talking about, my so-and-so needs more money. And I just think if we do it together quickly and let this be an urgent matter that we all work on real fast, and, you know, with the budget coming up and everything, instead of singling out one department.
No, I'm gonna speak on that too. I mean, I agree, but he's at a critical point where we don't have to shut down the courthouse or any other department, but we're at a point where we're gonna shut down the station, we're gonna shut down the trucks. I mean, we're at a point where we owe it to the citizens to have a safe environment and a safe place. And we're at the point where we're lucky right now. So we got a horseshoe. We're lucky nothing's happened. Because if we didn't have Forsyth coming in, if we didn't have Hall County coming in, we're gonna lose somebody. It might be one of those sitting in the audience right there.
Well, and
I'm not gonna be on this board losing somebody.
And I'll reiterate what you said, and I agree with you 100% that we should look at all of them. And in the meetings that I sit in with Chief Thompson and Sheriff Johnson and our Public Works Director, David McKee, we talked about that. We've talked about that we have that need. And Chief Thompson's here today, and he's representing his department and doing a good job of that. But yes, I mean, I fully expect that you're going to hear from Mr. McKee. You're going to hear from Sheriff Johnson. We've had those conversations, and yes, you're fixing to see a presentation in reference to salary study. You're absolutely right. I want to make sure that we're fast tracking that thing so that when we get to the budget process, we know what that number is. We definitely have to fast track that. But I do think that, the sheriff and I had this conversation. I think Danny was over there that day. And I don't think the sheriff realizes at that particular time, but, we're starting our firefighter paramedic out at $14 an hour. And luckily for the sheriff's deputies, who I still think are underpaid, they start out about 16 something, correct, Sheriff? 15 something. So there is a little bit of a difference there at the moment, but that's not enough. And I told him that particular day, but this man has a bigger issue today than even he does in reference to the hourly rate for a public safety official.
You're talking about urgency, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Well, and Ms. Nix, to build off of your statement, we have a county blessed with great county employees at every department. But if somebody calls out in finance, they don't hire overtime to fill that position. But in emergency services and at the sheriff's department, we don't have that luxury. We have a duty, a sworn duty to serve and protect. If somebody calls out that's working the front desk, we move people around to cover it. We don't have that luxury. Emergency services, public safety is exactly that. It is the essential core functions of this county. It is the very security blanket that each and every citizen enjoys.
Other questions, comments?
I guess, first of all, thank you for your passion and leadership in the role that you've taken over here in a short period of time. Thank each one of you for the commitment that you have to the county, and that's hollow words in the situation that we're in, it may sound like. I do believe that this board firmly believes that our employees, every single one of our employees, are our number one asset. And I think that we've tried to show that in the past with some ways that we could move into some increase in funding and things like that. I'm a numbers guy, I'm a statistics guy. You've provided information, and when I look at our organization as a whole and looking at challenges that we have when we're dealing with payroll and we're dealing with employees, I do see the greatest need. There are very valid needs at the sheriff's department. There's valid needs at roads department. There's valid needs throughout the whole organization. I mean, tax commissioner, there's valid needs everywhere. Bringing us a proposal that is realistic, it's a big nut to crack, but it's realistic. It's based in facts, it's based in data that is easily proved and true. You're not asking for the world, it doesn't seem. We're asking to stop some bleeding. And I get that. It's ultimately, Billy and I were talking the other day, it's the sole responsibility of commissioners is to provide safety and security for our residents. And we have a lot of amenities that citizens enjoy, but this is where the rubber meets the road with our responsibility ultimately. And I get it. It's not easy, and I think you appreciate the dynamics and the things that we have to work through as a board when it comes to budgeting purposes. And it's been said before, if we could just do an increase 100% across the board, we'd do it in a heartbeat.
For everybody.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
every employee, not just them or, everybody.
And it's a challenge, and I think historically from my perspective, I've wanted to do that. I've wanted to take care of everybody, but when we get to a critical mass, a critical area where it seems like we're at today, based on facts, based on data, based on number of positions open, the one that's bleeding the most is in your area. And I agree with that statement. And it's my commitment to you to try to do what we can in order to get us on a better playing field. And it's my commitment to the sheriff that we're gonna try to do what we can to get him on a better playing field, and to Dave McKee, and to everybody that we try to do the best we can, and it's not easy. And I think y'all appreciate that, the many ways that we're drawn and the many people coming at us, but you've got a serious issue on your hands. And talking to these guys that have lived it day in, day out, I don't micromanage. I like to depend on my department heads to bring me facts and data in order for me to be able to make decisions. But having some insight from Billy and Tim to be able to really say they've been in those trenches before, and to validate a lot of the things that you're saying, it scares me, I mean, to be honest with you. And so my commitment to you is I'll do everything I can from my perspective to help. And my commitment is to the whole county that we're going to do what we can to help. Procedurally, we have vacant positions. This is probably a question more for accounting. We have positions that the reality is we have 11, and I'm just going to use this now. We have 11 open positions. The reality is we're not going to fill those positions between now and the end of the year. When it comes to a function of accounting, we've allocated in our budget from let's say today through the end of the fiscal year, the end of this year. So we've allocated money towards those positions that the reality is we're not going to fill. Can we take some of those positions, not all of them, but let's say we know that we're not going to fill 11, so let's just say we take 4 of them. Can we take those funding that we've allocated to those 4 positions, and I don't know procedurally whether it's called freezing them and then releasing that money that's dedicated to those 4 positions out of the 11, and use that to spread out in a proposal that he would bring forward? Is that an option?
Yes, it certainly is.
And so what would we freeze though? What's the right terminology? How would we do that? Out of the 11, if we wanted to say use whatever that number may be to get to a proposal, whatever position, number of positions.
You would just freeze those positions, and then that funding would move to the positions that we're going to be on the receiving end.
To get us through the end of this year, and then potentially in our budget season, then we could anticipate a more long-term. Obviously, we want to see every single one of those positions. And the same thing with the sheriff, same thing across the whole organization. But when we look at how we're allocating the money, right now we're getting money back in at the end of the year because the position's not filled. Mm-hmm. And so it almost is a catch-22 when we got an open position, but we're bleeding out over here on the back end. I'd rather use those resources that we've allocated for those positions. The reality is we're not filling them, so let's take that and try to put into the assets that we already have to stabilize that.
And Chairman Gaines, you bring up an excellent
I'm not the
point.
chairman anymore. I mean, never been the chairman.
Promoted.
Anymore.
I didn't mean to.
What is happening?
I'm thinking of other work stuff.
But when I look at my budget, right now I can tell you on a bi-weekly basis, we are spending to fill the positions needed. We're spending roughly 8 to 10 grand a pay period of overtime. Okay? Now with that, I can tell you, we're on the positive side on the regular salary because we have carried vacancies for so long throughout the course of the year that if we did nothing, at the end of the year, I'm gonna give you back regular salary money. I'm gonna be out on the overtime side and will be by October, all right? But I'm gonna give you regular salary money back. So maybe as kind of what you're alluding to,
We would have to look at.
we would have to just sit down and run those numbers and crunch it, but maybe that's a possibility. And again, that's why I stuck with a number that I thought was very fair, very reasonable number. Wasn't trying to, break the piggy bank because I am very financially mindful of everything. And I try to stretch the dollar as best I can in my budget. And I watch it like a hawk.
So if we're able to do that, then we technically, from now to the end of the year in this current budget season, if we had enough funds in there, we wouldn't have to come out of fund balance to support a proposal potentially.
So the number that you proposed, 237, was that?
257.
257, was that for the remainder of the year?
That was for a
Full year?
full year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good, because obviously you've had,
Half a year.
some of those positions open this entire year, and this is what, June the 20th? So half of whatever was proposed for those positions has never been spent, obviously, out of your regular budget. Probably half of that person sometimes has been spent because, like you said, you're gonna go over in your overtime budget, because that's time and a half. So that $50 is laid there the whole time, plus the proposal that you're making to where, you know, maybe we fill 7 of those 11 if possible between now and the end of this year, and freeze the other 4 for now, but open them up when we get to the point where we're getting some applications, obviously, because we don't want to ever freeze something and just let it lay there, because we need those positions.
Correct.
And as we become more and more competitive in the market, you know, when you run the numbers, you may see that you actually have that money in your budget already to do what you're proposing, or at least pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, if we have
Cut
to,
down overtime.
yeah,
Yeah.
and if we have to freeze positions, that's not necessarily taken away, that's just, that's pausing the short time, and then as we see potentially sales tax revenue increase or whatever other revenues increase, then that's when, at this point, it's stabilizing the ship. I mean,
We would be understanding why we are freezing them, so there wouldn't be any problem for me to unfreeze them.
Right,
See, that this would be a different freeze.
right.
Correct.
And I think that's
It'd be
been,
very temporary.
Yes,
We would work through the 2020 budget cycle
That's
that
right.
we just kicked off
Yeah.
today to make the funds balance at the end.
I just had others say, I want to unfreeze these positions, but in reality, if we can reallocate, that might be the better of the two choices. Because if we had them frozen, we couldn't fill them.
mhm. I got 2 more questions. I know we're
Go
running
ahead.
long,
Go
we're
ahead.
okay. I don't understand, you said some of them couldn't be filled because they couldn't pass the background check. What is involved? What can they not pass?
So the current process is when an employee puts in, or a prospective employee puts in, they fill out the application, it goes to Human Resources. At that point, Erica will send me the applicant or applicants, and we will review them to make sure that they meet the minimum qualifications.
Okay.
So that's where some of them get disqualified, because if we're advertising for firefighter paramedics and they're not certified at all, they're out, unfortunately. Because
What
to
made
send,
them apply? I mean, do they not know what the?
You see a
And
lot of
what's
that.
funny about that?
They will not give them the certification,
Yeah.
teach them, train them.
Spend the money.
yeah, and
I
so,
wouldn't think
and
about
then
applying
we've
for
had,
something I wasn't qualified.
we have interviewed candidates
Happens all the time.
It does?
who had items in their background
Okay.
that
Is
would
it this
disqualify.
drug testing?
We haven't had any personally that have failed a drug test, but
Okay,
it has been other related criminal matters
okay, all right. And,
that prohibited us from offering it
and
out.
you're talking about lowering standards. Exactly what standards have you lowered?
So we advertised for 6 months, full-time firefighter paramedic positions. During that first 6 months, from July of last year to about mid-December, we didn't get any applicants. So knowing that, I said, well, I worked with Christie at that time, and what we basically did, we just said, okay, well, let's advertise for full-time for firefighter EMTs. And we were able to hire some firefighter EMTs, and we actually just took them and plugged them into firefighter paramedic positions. So, but that again was to help reduce that amount of overtime that we were shelling out every pay period. It was, you know, to have staffing and everything else. We got to a critical point, you know, around the first of the year, even new budget cycle, completely new budget money, but we knew that at that point we were still struggling to get qualified applicants to come through the door. So we did what we said, we'll do a recruit school. If we have to train you, all we ask is that they be EMT or paramedic certified, and we would be willing to send them to fire school. We had one candidate. We made two or three job offers, and when they found out the starting pay, they turned it down and went elsewhere.
Yeah, and you go back talking about, when you're talking about, hiring a firefighter EMT into a firefighter paramedic position. We advertise as being a ALS provider, advanced life support provider. And you can't be an advanced life support provider unless you have a paramedic. You have to have those people on those trucks to be ALS, to be advanced life support. I mean, I love every firefighter EMT, they do an excellent job, but they don't have that advanced training that a firefighter paramedic does. And so you are lowering your standard when you do that.
Get EMT instead of paramedic.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner.
Next up, we have presentation of RFP 34319, salary study for Dawson County award request, Human Resources Director, Ms. Lisa Green, and Purchasing Manager, Melissa Hall. Lisa, you gonna do that?
I got it.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. This afternoon I bring to you the 2019 salary study for Dawson County. A little bit about the background. In 2014, we had Archer Company come in and actually do a salary study. And then in 2017, they updated that original that was completed. This year for 2019, Dawson County has requested a more detailed study and scope of services, which is going to be outlined in an upcoming slide. What we really want to focus on are two groups this time. We want to break it down into Type A and Type B. Type A is going to be our public safety, and Type B is going to be for non-public safety. And April 17th, this year, we submitted an RFP and we received 4 responses. 2 of them were disqualified because they included their price in the technical response. And as with any of our bids, we do comply with our policy here, so this slide just indicates everything that we complied with and that we received those 4 proposals. The scope of services is what Dawson County requested. Basically, we want them to review our job classifications and job descriptions, make sure our FLSA, which is our exempt or non-exempt, are properly applied. We want them to look at our salary and wage rates, and that's going to be reviewed and revised for the county to review. The most important tool, I think, is the instrument that we want them to be able to provide us is an internal administration and maintenance of the compensation plan. And then, of course, we requested them to provide us final reports that will include detailed summary of the results, an implementation plan, and we also requested an ongoing consultation and troubleshooting for 1 year. The project deliverables are what the company is going to provide to us. They're going to provide a compensation study for those 2 types that we requested. They're going to provide a copy of salary study tools that, if necessary, Dawson County may use in the future so that we can conduct our own salary studies. They're going to have ongoing meetings with certain county staff members, and they're going to conduct surveys with several of our employees. They're also going to provide finalized reports and provide to the county staff and Board of Commissioners a way to develop and provide this implementation plan. The evaluation committee consisted of a combination of elected officials, emergency services, finance, human resources, and it was facilitated by our purchasing manager, Melissa Hawk. Now this slide may look complicated, but it's simply a breakdown of each of the scores submitted by the evaluators. For this RFP, the evaluation was weighted 75% technical and 25% by price. There were those 4 categories under technical, and as you can see on the left side, the 2 companies that were graded were Gallagher Benefit Services and Management Advisory Group, which sometimes you'll refer it as MAG. The average score for each of those categories in MAG outweighed Gallagher, and in the end came out on top with a score of 62.9. And when we look at the offers again, it seems complicated, but the takeaway on this slide here is that Gallagher would have cost $75,000 and Meg would cost $32.5K. The 2 that were disqualified, just for informational purposes, They were gonna cost $65,000 and the other one was $46,500. In the end, Meg scored the highest during the evaluation and received the full 25 points based on their price. My recommendation is that we accept the proposal submitted and award a contract to the Management Advisory Group in the amount of $32,500 and to utilize the General Government Contingency Fund in the same amount for this project.
Questions
Any
for
questions?
Lisa?
What's the let date?
I'm sorry?
What's the let date, the start of the contract? When can they start?
As soon as we can get something approved, I just don't know how long it would take until boots on ground.
And what's the timeline?
Once you guys decide what you're gonna do with this, it'll be 2 weeks to get the contract back, and they can start the very next day as long as I have the contract in hand.
And what's the timeline of the whole total process?
We gave them, I think it was 3 months from start to finish.
90 days.
Where is this group from? Melissa, do you remember?
I'm
Do
so
you remember
sorry?
the location of Meg?
No, I do not. I want to say it was Maryland, but they have staff that's here in Georgia. Their main building is in Maryland. They were kind of all over the place. One was Maryland, Philadelphia, Alpharetta, and Athens. Alpharetta and Athens were disqualified.
But they will have staff that's here to do.
They already do now currently.
Have they dealt with any other counties that are surrounding us that we know of?
I'm not sure.
What did he say?
He told me just to stand up. Y'all forgot to say Simon Says.
If we're 90 days, that puts us within having data collected for June, July, August. So that puts us right at
Before the finalization of it, yes. I think it's important, and I know we've had this discussion, at least David and I have had this discussion, that we're looking at our hourly employees hourly, and then our salaried employees, if they want to do an annual salary on that, I don't really have an issue with that, but I don't want them to look at it based on everything being annual, and then we get back in the same situation we are here, where we're dividing this astronomical number of hours into the same amount of pay that somebody else is getting divided by 28. So I think it's going to be critical that we look at this where they give us what is the hourly wage for that hourly position versus they give us what is the annual salary for that salaried position.
We can figure out the annual.
Yeah.
Hourly.
Well, I mean, they can do it that way for the salary. I mean, they're going to know the difference between exempt and a non-exempt employee. So those people that are strictly hourly, we need an hourly wage for them and an hourly range for those particular people.
Well, if I might add to that, Chairman, the big takeaway from here is that we did separate the Part A and Part B, the public safety versus, because they are, as you mentioned, different in scope. And so we're going to pay close attention to that through this study and the other studies.
I want to make sure that Public Works is in that public safety Part A.
They are.
They are, sir.
Some of the feedback that I've heard over the last couple of years with the prior salary study was inconsistencies in clarifying job responsibilities and very good job descriptions, and I think that a lot of attention needs to be placed on clearly defining our roles, because we have some folks in the downturn that picked up other responsibilities and jobs were combined and things like that. So I would request that we drill deep on, let's really get a good scope of what that person's doing, regardless of what their title may be. Let's figure out exactly what they're managing.
That's a good point. Last week, we pushed out to all the department heads and elected officials, all the current job descriptions that we had, and it requested them to update it by the end of this month. And that way, we have everything in uniformity, and also making sure that they have already spent the time and effort to make sure that all the duties and responsibilities are captured in those job descriptions. So we will be ahead of the game before the team arriving.
Good, yeah.
Good. And you did note that, I noticed in one of your scopes, that we wanted to update those job descriptions and stuff, so that's excellent.
Yeah, you know, I guess my final comment is from my perspective, I want to see the good, bad, and the ugly. And let's not try to back into this thing anyway, that we got X amount of money to spend. Let's see what the experts say, and when we get good data in will give us good data out. And we make decisions. We might not be able to fully fund exactly what I can almost guarantee you we won't be able to fully fund what they initially come back with, but we need to take the data when we get it back and put a plan in place to implement.
And this is not gonna be perfect.
Right.
No.
People are gonna fuss about this. I mean, you know, the Archer study's been raging ever since it's been done.
Yeah.
So, there's just no way to capture everything that everybody does.
Yeah.
But when we take a stab at it, there's still gonna be questions and comments for this one.
Other questions for Lisa? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a presentation of FY 2020 Legacy Link contract. Chief Financial Officer Vicki Knight. Vicki.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of Dawn Pruitt, the Director of Senior Services. She had to be out of town, and so she asked me to present this for her. This is just requesting that you approve the 2020, that sounds so weird, 2020 contract, which runs from July 1st through June 30th. The contract for the federal and state funds is $144,930. The county match would be $357,569. This contract provides meals for senior clients and for daily management expenses at the senior center.
Do you know of any changes in this, or is this pretty well the routine contract?
It's the routine contract. The one thing that was added was the respite care. You remember we added
Yes.
that, and so this was an addition to what was in last year's contract.
Okay.
But that matches in our budget, right?
Yes.
Did you, we need to vote on this tonight since it's July 1st through June?
Yes, she asked me to. I
need to ask. Thank you.
But since it's almost July, so she asked me.
What you said to add all these?
I knew Kristen would do that.
Go ahead for you. All right, so y'all are adding that one too. All right, so Kristen, you're gonna have a whole new page.
It's okay.
Thank you, Vicki. County Manager report.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I have a small report for you this evening. Your key indicator reports for the month of May are in your packet. I do want to draw your attention to the back page, 147, and bring your attention to the contracts that have been authorized and signed by myself. Also, we included the purchase orders as well that have been put out for purchase. One thing I do want to bring up is that you may recall back on, I believe it was June the 13th, I sent an email out to the commission advising them that there was a $6,332 shortfall for the property and liability invoice, and that was paid through accounts payable. It was not on here, but I did want to make mention to you about that was taken out of the $100,000 contingency that the board did approve, and so that figure now is down about $93,000. So I did want to bring your attention to that as well. We also have our collections are up 18.22% for the same month in 18, and up 9.3% for the year to date. And our SPOS collections are 6.78% over projections. Also want to bring to your attention that Commissioner Satterfield has received his certification, and he completed that much earlier than expected. And
Yeah, how did he do that? I didn't know he was that smart. Oh, okay.
So I do want to bring recognition to you and congratulations, Commissioner Satterfield. As customary, when we have special events coming up, we like to acknowledge that, and this special event will happen June 28th. And So that commissioner won't be here for his birthday, so I think it's only appropriate that we, Commissioner Gaines be awarded the courtesy of a nice happy birthday song. So, happy birthday to you, not coming just from me.
This is solo.
To you, happy birthday to you.
Start over.
This is the worst birthday.
I'm glad they're recording this.
They sang it to you anyway.
Thank you.
That's good, that's good.
But that does conclude my report, Chairman.
Questions of the county manager?
Goodness, it was going downhill.
Questions of the county manager? County attorney?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I have no public report. I do have a couple of matters to address in executive session involving litigation and land acquisition.
Okay, thank you, sir. So with that, I'll take a motion to go in executive session for land acquisition and litigation.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett, seconded by Commissioner Nix. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved. We got about 28 minutes, so we'll go straight back to executive session.